Okay, hi. We're going to look today at how to unpack an essay question. So work out what the question is asking you, formulate a contention, and then generate some ideas so you can actually respond to that essay question. So I'm going to first of all talk you through my process when I'm looking at an essay question. Before I start anything, I go through these steps. So the first thing I do is look at the vocabulary. So what do I need to find out? Basically, this means, do I understand all of the words and phrases in this question so that I can best understand it? Spelled something there. This is why it's really, really important that you do bring a dictionary into any examination or any test or any learning task that you're permitted to bring a dictionary into, because chances are there will be something in there that you're not going to know what it means, and if you don't have a dictionary, you're obviously extremely limited in how you can find that out. Okay, 2. What's the main idea behind this prompt? Alright, so this is where we kind of reword the essay question or the prompt to make sure that we have understood it in really clear terms. The third thing we do is work out a contention. So basically you're asking yourself, do I agree or do I disagree? Okay, and then step number 4, prove it, back up what you're saying, and that's where we use evidence. We're going to get to that a bit later. So we're going to go through each of these steps one by one. So vocabulary, first of all, we are looking for any words that we don't understand particularly well. So I'm going to look at consequences. All right, what does consequences mean? Well, basically it means effects or results. Okay, cool. So now I've got that word. I'm good with all of the others, so that's fine. I'm going to move on to what is the main idea in this prompt. Okay, so we've got a couple of ideas here. We've got more than a story of survival. All right, so what do we actually mean by that? Well, we're talking about, this is basically saying it is, It is a story of survival because we've got the word more, okay? So that kind of tells us automatically that it is a story of survival, at least partially, okay? So in at least some sense, it is a story of survival. Now, another key idea we've got is the lasting consequences of the Holocaust. All right, so we've got a couple of key words here. So lasting, this tells us that it's not just during the Holocaust that we have effects, okay? The other idea is kind of this whole key idea here. So this is where we're kind of asking ourselves, how has the trauma of the Holocaust affected people? So what are the lasting effects? What are the things that keep impacting people after the Holocaust is over? All right. Now we're going to get to the point of, do I agree or disagree? So do I think that Mouse is a story of survival? Yes, I do. I can see evidence for that in the text. When I think about the book, that makes sense that it's a story of survival. Do I think that it's also about the lasting effects of the Holocaust and how the Holocaust, the trauma of the Holocaust affected people? Yeah, I do think that as well. So I'm going to write that into, so we're up to point 3 now. Do I agree or disagree? Yes, I agree. All right, and I'm going to rewrite what I think in a sentence. So it's both a story of survival and it's also about the lasting consequences of the Holocaust. All right, now I'm going to start to prove it. So I'm not getting into message statements or planning out my paragraphs yet. I just want to think of kind of the main things like in this statement that I've made in my contention. I want to think about what are the key ideas in my contention and can I back it up? Okay, so I've said, yes, I think that it's more than a story of survival. Now I'm going to think about why. I've also said that it's about the lasting consequences of the Holocaust. Again, I'm going to think about why. So we're up to step 4, proving it. All right, so we're going to start with number 1. Survival. In what way is this about survival? Well, I would say Vladek's story that he tells Art about how he... his experiences during the war and all of the things that he did, all of them are driven by the need and the desire to survive. So I'm going to say Vladek's story is my proof. Okay, and then I'm going to expand on that a little bit. So Spiegelman shows how Vladek's intelligence and resourcefulness helped him to survive. Cool. All right, so I've expanded on my first idea. Yeah, I can see that there is going to be evidence for what I'm saying about how Mouse is a story of survival. Great. Okay, what about my second idea? The lasting consequences. Okay, can I think of some lasting consequences of the Holocaust on any of the characters, really? And straight away I think yes. Okay, we've got a couple of things and they're mainly going to revolve around Vladek, but I've got a few ideas here. So I've got the lasting consequences on Vladek's habits. So here I'm talking about things like him, what's considered by Art, I guess, and Marla to be his stinginess, and his preoccupation with saving things and having everything always kind of perfect and ready to go all the time. I'm also going to talk in this, like my other piece of, or my other main idea to back this up is the impact on the relationships that Vladek has. Okay, so Here I'm really kind of thinking about his relationship with art and Mahler. Great, so I've got 2 key ideas in my contention, 1 and 2, and I've got 1 and 2 kind of elements of proof. Beautiful. Now I'm going to start turning these ideas that I've got into message statements. So let's get a new page. All right. So now I want to start turning breaking these 2 ideas up into 3 ideas so that I can start turning it into a text response. So in a typical text response essay, you should be aiming for at least 3 paragraphs, sometimes 4, I would say maximum 5 paragraphs, depending on how long they are. So we're just going to aim for 3 today, which means that we need 3 message statements to form the basis of our paragraphs. So the first one I think is pretty standard, matches up with this one nicely. Okay, so Mouse is a story about survival. Great. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to start thinking about some evidence. So what's some evidence for this? Well, Vladek's story. And I'll think about some more specific examples of particular things that he does or says, find some quotes, find some images that back up what I'm saying a little bit later once I've got the message statements for all 3 of my paragraphs. All right, so message statement 2. Okay, so here we're moving on to the second key idea, and we've got 1, 2 little dot points in here already. So we're actually going to expand those 2 into their own message statements. So it will kind of reflect how Mouse is about more than a story of survival. It's key. The key idea is that it's about the lasting consequences of the Holocaust. And I'm going to show that in my essay by having 2 paragraphs, 1, 2 on this idea and only 1 on this idea. Okay? All right, so paragraph 2. I'm going to talk about how Mouse... is also a story about the lasting consequences of the Holocaust. On everyday human behaviour. All right, great. Now, I've got my key idea. What's my evidence for this? Well, again, it's going to actually be Vladek. So here we're looking at now, I've just put stinginess in here just as a reminder to me to look for that kind of evidence. We're not going to use that word in the essay itself because it's a little bit too informal, but that kind of gives me a clue that I need to look for examples like returning cereal and stealing the matches from the hotel, picking up the copper wire from the ground, all of those kinds of things. Okay. All right, so I'll come back and find those specific pieces of evidence a little bit later, but this reminds me of what I need to actually be looking for when I get up to that. All right, third message statement. We are looking at, now if we go back to here, we're looking at the lasting consequences of Vladek's relationships. So let's turn that into a message statement. Mouse also explores how the Holocaust affected affected relationships for after it was over. Okay, so message statement 3. Mouse also explores how the Holocaust affected relationships for many years after it was over. All right, and what are the relationships that I think have been affected? Well, I'm going to be looking again at Vladek and his relationships with Art and Marla. Okay, so here you can see how we have turned we've unpacked the question and we've turned the ideas in this question into a contention that we've got here. And we've also turned our ideas about the contention and the reasons why we say that contention is right into 3 message statements. 1, 2, 3. That then we can gather evidence for. We've kind of got ideas of where we're going to look for that evidence. We'll collect all of that evidence, and once we've got that, we can start putting that together in meal paragraphs and turning it into a complete text response essay.